Hi, and welcome to We Gotta Unpack This Ish, okay? This is going to be a space where I don't tell you what to do. I just share what I've been learning, reflecting on, and uncovering in my very own life. Hi, my name is Jasmine. I am the founder and CEO of Janet Marcella LLC, a wellness brand that is focused on 100% natural skincare and energy wellness. And I'll get more into that as we travel into further episodes, future episodes about Janet Marcella and how Janet Marcella can really upgrade your life, because it's all about choosing a vibe. Okay? But for today, I want to talk about something that came up for me recently while I was sitting in my car. The fear of receiving, and how it shows up not just in accepting kindness, but in ways we show up in love, relationships, and even our very own lives, okay? A lot of us grow up with conditional love, let's be clear. It's all around us. We see it on TV, we see it in our relationships, we see it in the workplace, we see it in friendships. It's something that I truly believe has been subconsciously integrated into our minds. And even if we grew up in a healthy, happy home, doesn't necessarily mean that it was unconditional love. Unconditional love does not look the same for everybody. And conditional love definitely doesn't look the same for everybody. And I can definitely say in my life growing up, I think conditional love was a super huge theme in my family and in the generations. And baby, I'm here to unbreak those generational curses, okay? And that love sometimes feels like strings are attached to it, you know? And when that's the foundation of what we grew up with, it shapes the way we think love is supposed to look like. We start believing this is love, right? This is how love is supposed to be, right? And even when that love isn't healthy, our bodies and mind tend to lean into it because guess what? It's familiar. If that resonates with you, trust me, you are definitely not alone. So we got to unpack this ish, okay? All right. So as I said before, earlier today, I had a moment of clarity sitting in my car. I realized something very powerful about myself, the fear of receiving, and the patterns that tend to show up in our lives that we continue to keep repeating aren't about thinking we're not worthy of healthy love or experiences. It's about what we've been conditioned to see as love. And currently I am going through a divorce, and I am choosing to walk away from a marriage that I felt was unhealthy, was toxic, and it didn't align with the love that I've always envisioned for myself. So anyways, conditional love, transactional love, love that comes with expectations or strings attached. When that is the blueprint of how we grew up, we unconsciously believe it. This is how love is supposed to be. Say it with me. And here's the truth. That is a really big misconception, okay? It's a false reminder of what love is supposed to feel like. That misunderstanding is exactly why so many of us end up in unhealthy relationships or unhealthy situations in life in general. We tend to dim our lights, not realizing we're dimming our lights, okay? Because the blueprint is very familiar. We overgive, we overlove, we lean into relationships that are transactional or unreciprocated without realizing it. Do you hear me? We become people pleasers. Okay? We feel the need to be validated all the time, to be seen. I have to be seen. They have to see me for who I am. And therefore, we tend to go against what we know isn't necessarily what we need or in alignment with our life because, guess what? It's familiar. Okay? And meanwhile, healthy love that actually nourishes and supports us, can feel very foreign or even uncomfortable. So think about how many times, if you reflect back on like exes or work relationships or friendships where somebody really came in a healthy space and we pushed them away. We may have been unhealthy towards them because we were just, we're like, what kind of love is, our body's like, what kind of love is that? That's not what I know. That's safe. That's just too safe, right? And so our bodies don't immediately necessarily recognize it. And that discomfort tends to cause anxiety or even resistance, even though it's really what we need, okay? I first started to understand this whole concept, like literally, say a few months ago when I went on a little hiatus and I spent some time with myself because divorce is very, very heavy. Remember, nobody is trying to get divorced. People, we really do get married because we truly believe that we are in love and that this is for us. But when we start seeing the breakdown in our bodies, when we start seeing, I know for me, I started losing my hair. I was always sick. I was always tired, lethargic, very explosive emotionally, a lot of reactiveness, that I started to really sit back and say, do I want to continue to keep living like this? I think for my age, my body was like not able to hold up and survive through that energy anymore. And so the breakdown really started happening and I really had to take a deeper look at myself. And that's when I decided to walk away from a very unhealthy marriage. And that step, that clarity of walking away, was the first time I saw in a long time, this lifelong pattern that I've been living in. I had a tendency to choose partners or situations that weren't healthy for me. Not because I was unworthy, but because I didn't know what unconditional, nourishing love actually looked like. My blueprint told me this unhealthy love, this is my love, this is love, even when it wasn't. And once you start to notice that, it definitely will open the doors to understanding your patterns, your responses, and the ways your body and mind have been conditioned without judgment. Because sometimes too, like my brand is called Janet Marcella. It's named after both of my grandmothers who are no longer in this earthly dimension with us, Janet Hopkins and Marcella Holman. I truly feel like they gave me the most unconditional love. But I couldn't like connect the two because they were my grandmothers. And at times we tend to compartmentalize things like, oh, well, that's how grandma's supposed to love. And if you had a really great grandma, or you had a really great parent, or you had a really great life where these individuals were amazing to you, you might do this thing where we disassociate and say, well, that's how grandma's supposed to love. But my partner's going to love me this way because that's how I've been raised, or that's what I'm familiar with. And that's where also, too, you can have a lot of internal battles with self. Because we all have experienced, at some point, unconditional love. But we create it into its own little thing outside of the whole total part, if that makes any sense, okay? And here's what I want to emphasize, okay? Clarity doesn't always come from dissecting every past trauma, okay? Sometimes that'll put you in a rabbit hole you don't want to be in, okay? Sometimes it just comes from simply noticing your patterns and sitting with them. I think we get caught up sometimes in how we're being treated and how this person is treating us, than really looking at ourselves. And it's not about blame shifting or holding yourself 1,000% accountable, because that person who's treating you like crap still needs to be held accountable. But we can't control that person. That's a variable that has nothing to do with us. We can only control or have power over the variables that are us, our own energy. And so the responsibility comes, like Oprah Winfrey said, if it is your duty, if they're not going to be responsible for their behavior, you have to be responsible for the behavior. And with that is sitting back and saying, okay, wait a minute. I'm noticing that I keep kind of doing the same thing. And the saying goes, you're going to keep getting the same thing until you learn the damn lesson. And we all hate that fucking lesson, okay? We hate that. So what you have to do is notice, where do you overgive? Where do you tolerate love or situations that aren't actually nourishing? Where do you push away healthy, loving things that feel unfamiliar? Why do you feel the need to people please? Overgive all the time. Pour from an empty cup. And why do you have such a hard time pouring back into yourselves? And do you even understand what it means to pour into self? Do you feel yourself sometimes when somebody's offering something that in your mind you're trying to figure out, how do I pay them back? How do I do this? Even though that person never asked for anything in return. That was my notorious problem. It's always feeling like I owed someone in return what they've done for me. Yet when I do things for people, I'm not asking for anything in return. So ask yourself, why is that imbalance? And that's the magic of awareness, okay? Once we see these patterns, we can slowly start to retrain our hearts and minds and bodies to recognize what true love and nourishment actually feels like, okay? So practically, what does this look like? So for me, when someone offers kindness or love, I like to pause now. I like to notice how I feel in my body. Am I noticing tension? Am I noticing resistance? Am I noticing fear? Am I doing that thing where I'm like, okay, well, they give this to me, and then I have to do this. I'll cook them dinner, or I'll pay them back, or I'll come and show up for this. I'll come and show up for that. And when I start going to those places, one of the biggest things that I've learned is breath work, and even self-soothing to help control, not control, but calm down my mind. And something else is I created a grounding spray, which I'll talk more about in the next episode, to allow myself to calm down, be present in the moment, and actually hear what my body, what my heart, not so much my conscious mind is telling us, because sometimes our mind can override everything we're feeling, right? It's like going to that scary house and your body's like, oh, no, I don't want to go in here. And you're like, yeah, whatever, we're just going to do it anyways. And then you get caught up in some crazy ass ish, right? Like I said, we're unpacking it. So, breathing. Having conscious conversations with yourself. Not out loud necessarily, but talking to yourself in your mind to be present. Paying attention to how you're feeling. And allow yourself to receive without thinking, without trying to earn it, okay? And also listening, being really receptive to how this person is presenting to you. Because sometimes if you let somebody talk enough, they're telling themselves. If you pay attention to how they move, they will tell on themselves. So you have the discernment to really see whether or not what this person is offering to you, or the situation is offering to you, is it coming from a space of unconditional love? Or is it coming from a space of transactional, weaponized, guilt tripping, manipulation? And when you do that, you can reflect once you make your decision. You can reflect afterwards. What did I learn about myself in this moment? What patterns did I notice? What opened up? Because even if you do find yourself mistakenly taking on something that is not healthy, it's not considered unconditional love, but conditional or transactional, you can always still reflect, not beat yourself up, because that's the worst thing you can do is beat yourself up. But you can reflect and say, okay, you know what? After I accepted this from this person, I noticed these behaviors coming next. I noticed how I was feeling. I know I was stressed. I didn't feel good. I was sad. It didn't sit right with me. So we always say, that just didn't sit right with me. And then you can kind of sit down and break down the patterns that you notice with that. What opened up, what didn't open up. And, learn from, okay, now that I'm recognizing what's going on, I can now take those tiny moments of awareness and slowly transform how I interact with my life, love, and abundance, and how I maybe next time that this is presented to me, how I'll handle it. And the biggest thing is to always thinking about, how does this align for my highest good? And if it doesn't line up with your highest good, leave it alone. Just because things smell pretty and look nice and all that good stuff doesn't mean it's necessary for you. Okay? So always just keep those things in mind. But being present, and the only way that you're going to be present is doing breath work. Being conscious. Being aware. Being accepting what's being presented to you. Don't try to overthink it. Don't try to say, oh, maybe it's this and that. No. Look at it for what it is and find acceptance in it. Okay? So just keep those things in mind the next time that you are entering into a relationship, that you're entering into a friendship, business, or just anything situationally in life. It's okay to take a step back for a second and really observe it. And even if you need a few days to sit on it, not too much, because the problem is when we start overthinking, that's when we kind of go down the rabbit hole and then we end up talking ourselves out or into something that isn't for us. So again, acknowledge it. Accept it. Okay? Even if it looks ugly, you can accept, well, that's ugly. And then from there, you can actually make a decision that makes sense. Well, this is ugly. Does this ugly thing really align with who I am and where I'm headed in life? And if it doesn't, then that's when you make the decision to say, I'm not going to accept this kind of love. But if it does align with me, then I'm going to accept this love. And even though my body is like freaking out, I'm going to learn how to breathe through this, self-soothe, tap, say some affirmations, spray my Janet Marcella spray, and I'm going to walk into this. Because what's the worst that could happen? Okay? So, all right. That's today's unpacking, which is the fear of receiving, the imprint of conditional love, and the patterns that shape how we show up in relationships and life. If this resonates with you, sit with it. Notice it in your own life, okay? And maybe next time we can explore another layer of living authentically without shrinking ourselves, okay? Without performing and fully stepping into love and clarity we've always been meant to experience, okay? So I will see you next time on the next episode of We Need to Unpack This Ish, okay? And we're going to talk even more deeper. I'm going to share a little bit more about where I'm at in my life, where I'm going, some of the things that I've experienced, and also talking more about my products for Janet Marcella LLC, an energy wellness brand that is all about 100% natural skincare, pouring into yourself, loving yourself, accepting yourself, learning about yourself, and choosing a vibe that ultimately aligns with the best version of yourself. So keep it real, keep it easy, don't be too hard on yourself, okay? Take the time to reflect and make the necessary changes that make sense for you. And the biggest thing that I can say is always pour into yourself, even if that means saying no. So until we see each other again, thanks for coming and being a part of my first episode. We got to unpack this ish. Okay? Peace. Bye.